Well, welcome to week one of environmental health issues. This week we're going to introduce you to the concept of sustainability, which is the theme for the first 3 weeks of the subject. And after I've talked to you about that, I'm just going to reiterate some of the things I made in the first video clip about the subject. But first to sustainability, it's a word that's been around for a really long time, since the 14th century, according to the Oxford Dictionary, as sustainable. But some people use the word sustainability, some people use ecological sustainability, and some use ecologically sustainable development. So we're going to use sustainability, and there are resources for you to read and watch, and we've posed some questions for you to think about so that you can discuss this with your colleagues. So sustainability, just briefly, is a process of change that improves the long-term health of ecological systems, and so of course humans. And it came back into our conversation, if you like, in about the 1970s. There was a group, a think tank made up of businessmen and others in 1970, and they belonged to a think tank called the Club of Rome. And they commissioned some research to examine the trends in consumption patterns and population growth, because their hypothesis was that if these continued at the same rate, and remember this is back in the 1970s, then the Earth would reach its limits. And so following this research, there was a publication made called Limits to Growth by Danella Meadows and colleagues, and you can find these on the web if you want. So Club of Rome or Limits to Growth, and there have been updates since then. But on an international level, and with many countries involved, the World Commission on Environment and Development came up with a definition in 1987. In this subject, we reiterate, I guess, some of the language in that definition. So we say that sustainability is a process of change, as I said. It's underpinned by social justice and also intergenerational equity. And we also talk about, over the next 3 weeks, the precautionary principle and conserving cultural and biological diversity. Those things are important when we're thinking about sustainability. And so we want to prevent or reverse some of the adverse impacts that human activities have had on ecosystems or the Earth's system, but at the same time we want to allow an equitable development in societies. So there's a substantial body of evidence, of course, that human health and human survival is under greater threat than previously thought, due to some of the rapid changes in the global ecology, and there are new challenges, and you'll be aware of some of those. Life depends on all of on the Earth's functioning well, and that relationship, of course, impacts on our health and well-being and survival as it happens. So there are global and local and direct and indirect. There are short-term and long-term impacts. There are negligible and devastating effects of degraded ecosystems on human health, and they are already experienced by many people. And importantly, I think, for this subject is that the health burden is borne by individuals and communities unequally. So the strain on the resources of the health sector is mounting, particularly in times of crisis, such as the wild weather that we are experiencing more and more and more. and so the health system is very much part of hopefully providing some solutions to some of the problems. So I look forward to reading your responses and having discussions with you online. As I said to you in the last video clip, this subject is entirely online. There are no face-to-face sessions, and some of you will be more experienced about using online than others. As I said last week, it is a 15 credit point subject, and so the amount of time you spend will be similar to that of a normal face-to-face session. So we're recommending that 3 to 4 hours per week, but you need to log in about 3 times a week. We suggest a couple of hours to do your reading and watching and thinking, taking notes and what have you, as you would in a lecture, and then logging in once or twice a week to have discussions with your colleagues. So we'll be asking you to read something and watch something and discuss something each week. And as I think you should, if you took some notes along the way, then you can formulate a great response. So have a read of the instructions. It really is read the instructions under the discussion section and answer those point by point, and you'll be fine. Now it takes a little while. We've put you into groups. It takes a little while for everybody to settle in, and so whilst you're in a group now, I may need to move you in about week 2 or 3. So just be patient about that. Some people will choose not to do the subject, some people will choose to do the subject, and so there'll be a little bit of shifting about in the first couple of weeks. We don't start examining you and your discussions until week 3, and we examine all of you in week 3 on your discussion, and so I invite you to look at the marking guide in particular for discussions. And then we will mark you 3 times randomly over the semester for your discussions. But I'll talk more about that at a later date. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the first 3 weeks, and so you're ready to start week 1 now. As I say, welcome to Environmental Health Issues. I'm the subject coordinator, Glenda Verrinder, and we have Fiona Dangerfield and Stacey Braxley O'Grady and Alice Wilkin, who will be working with some of the teams as well. So good luck for